but you're amazing. You're amazing. Oh, I'm not bad myself, but you're amazing. You're amazing. Oh, I'm not bad myself, but you're amazing. You're amazing. Oh, I'm not bad myself, but you're amazing. You're amazing. One day, when we're getting wrinkly and our hair's grey, a rusty old banger in the driveway, one of us will maybe wear a toupee, but I will be in love with you.
Hello, 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 amazing impact makers! It's another Tuesday. It's another Public Speaking Academy day. Here we're going. We're gonna have a fun ride today. You're all going to dive one level deeper than you've already got scratched the surface to. Amazing. Before we're going to start with the content today, I would love to hear some quick wins from everyone. What are some moments in time that we can celebrate with each other that happened in the last 7 days? Who would love to start? Patrice, what about you?
Good morning, Laurie. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, wasn't that ready? A quick win for me every day, first of all, is health. You can't do anything if you're sick. So we kind of take it for granted when we're cruising through life and nothing is happening. And then we're just like, oops, something happened and you start appreciating it. So that's one great thing I give thanks to every morning. And in respect to business-wise, I'm actually working on the deal and I'm probably gonna close it soon. So it's progressing. So I think that's a good win that's coming my way.
Let's go. Congrats, man. And a winner
Yes.
as well is in 6 weeks from now, you're going to share your story.
I'm looking forward to that one. It's still nerve-wracking.
Everybody is. Well done. Carolyn, your hand raised as well. What can we celebrate with you?
I just thought, actually, yesterday I was in the group and the lady that spoke, I learned a lot about that lesson yesterday. I mean, the rhythm. Remember when I talked last week? I said, oh, I heard the song. And all of a sudden, I never thought about that. I just said, I heard the song. And then yesterday, she had this rhythm. It was just she was just speaking extemporaneously, but it was really, really nice. Her story about the balloons and her grandfather, or that was it balloons or something, their grandfather.
Yeah, so yesterday in the community call, we talked about like shares as well, right? And someone shared that her father passed away. And that one thing that he loved for her to do is follow her own dream. And what she always wanted to do is do the ukulele, right? And now she's adding the ukulele to her talk because what if that's possible, right? So it's beautiful. And based on what you shared, Carolyn, you said it last week as well, you're experiencing things through through hearing, right? And when we're looking at communication, there's always 3 types of different ways we can send and receive information. And in your audience, there's always all 3 of them. I'll just quickly tell them again because you're inspiring that now, Carolyn. The first one is visual learners. And visual learners, let's see which one you are, right? They talk a little fast, they talk a little speedy. They're talking about, do you see it? Imagine this. Do you see this in front of you? What I've experienced was this, and it was epic. I have no idea which one I am, but that's certainly one of them. The second one is what we call audible. Auditorian is a different way of saying it. And an auditorian way of communicating, we are talking in this kind of rhythm. It's more stoic. It's more rhythmic. It's more regarding a song. something you're hearing. It's more about arguments, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 steps, 1, 2, 3 breakthroughs. This is exactly what you're going to do afterwards. And then number 3 is what we call kinesthetic. And when I would talk like someone who's preferred kinesthetic, I would slow down a bit. My volume would drop, so people are able to feel it in their body. And all 3 different ways are in your audience. So as a communicator, you want to adjust to all 3 different ways. Mostly what we're communicating, especially when we're nervous, is the one that is preferred to ourselves. So it's really nice to be aware which one you are. Who here mostly resonates with the first one we talked about, the visual? Loud, fast, la 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 la. Okay, 4 out of 5. Who here prefers auditorium? We are all of them. Yeah, Carolyn, you're talking about hearing, Linda. People often reveal this in the way they ask questions, right? What sort of questions, I already know which one you are. Even what kind of wins. It's when you start to listen to the clues, you start to recognize it. Just know that overall in your audience, they're all equal. And then who here mostly resonates with kinesthetic? Fascinating. Now, which one do you think I am? You can put it in the chat. What do we got? Visual. Of course, I'm all 3. Absolutely. Everybody is all 3, but which one is preferred? Visual, right? So you see that I'm also attracting more people who are preferred visuals, right? It's an organic situation. You just want to be aware with it so you can adapt to these other people as well. Beautiful. Nice win, Carolyn. What about you, Linda, before we go to the content of the day? Amazing, Linda.
The win for me was that at least I got through the first draft of my speech. So that was huge, because the last time I went through the academy, I think it was like a day or 2 before, I was still scrambling, trying to figure out what it was going to look like. So that was a huge accomplishment for me.
Yeah. So well done. And that's what we do, right? Like what you're building like each week through each week. It's to create something, right? And it's to create something that then you're creating a video for. And me and Linda had our one-on-one preparation call yesterday. So we're able to go through this, and that's what you're all building, right? All of you have access to your personal blueprint, your template, and that template you want to fill in throughout the whole entire 8 weeks, simultaneously watching the videos, implementing every week while we're here in your framework, that when it's time for your preparation call, you get notification when it's your time. You're able to create a recording based on everything you've already prepared throughout. You get feedback from it, and then you implement that feedback. So instead of just learning and listening and then, oh my God, now I need to create this whole thing, we're building every week a little bit on each other. Make sense? And that's what you did, Linda. And what I love about your share as well is that you share, I've done the Public Speaking Academy before. I did everything I could. I've implemented everything that I've learned. And now with new understanding, I'm able to create such a different talk because you're more aware of all the nuances, because you gave yourself some time to settle into this. So absolutely beautiful. Are there specific questions from any one of you based on what you've been learning or implementing so far that you feel is very important to get clarity on before we start today? Carolyn?
I've always thought of myself as a visual. And now this, just lately within your classes, I'm astounded that everyone thinks I'm an auditory. So if you have, maybe I'm both, probably. And what do you do about that? Is that a good thing? I would think it would be a good thing. Or
What
what
do
do
you,
you do with it?
why do you think that's a good thing, Carolyn?
Well, things that you would get twice as much information, and you would have twice as much, what's the word I want to use? Ability to, you have twice as much stuff, I can't think of the word I want to use. Twice as,
You're really easier with adapting because both of them you build a really strong muscle in. There's nothing right, there's nothing wrong. The only point that we're making here is that it's really good to be aware what your preferred learning style is, knowing that there's people who perceive information in a different way. So when you're aware, like whether it's the two, it's not to figure out which one you are and completely figure that out. It's like based on how I normally act, which one am I leaning into the most, or which two am I leaning into the most, and how can I make sure that I'm adjusting my style to everybody who is listening. Beautiful. Good question. All right, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna watch a video together again, analyze it together again, and really learn from this specific video what you can implement for yourself. And how I would love to do this is that every single one of you opens up the speaking blueprint that you have access to on your computer. So at the same time you're listening to this video, you're immediately able to write the notes for yourself in your own personal document. So when it's your time to have your one-on-one prep call, you have your document filled out completely and you're completely prepared. So what I would love for all of you to do, and I see you're all looking strategically and figuring it out, please give me a thumbs up if you have that open on your desktop. Amazing. Linda, Charlene has got it. Nilsa's got it. Trees, if you got perfect. And Carolyn, I see you waving. It's in your chat, in the Zoom chat. So you just have to click on it. Okay. So when you open up your template, what I would love for you to scroll through is what is the first thing that is empty when you look from bottom up. That first chunk, please put that in the chat. What is the first chunk that is empty in your form that right now will be the focus of today's session? Because again, what we want to do is we want to fill this in, and every video, every example is giving you leverage to figure out what your next step will be. So is that for you, number one, figure out what the aim is? Is that number two, pick the right stories? Is it number three, glue it all together? Or is it number four, optimize the delivery? What is the next step that you're going to focus on today? Please put that in the chat. So for example, for Carolyn, I am looking at your sheet. For you, it's define the transformation. So you want to focus on what the aim of your talk is and fill in I help, to, without, so. Make sense? Glue the talk together, Linda. Optimize delivery, Nielsen, you're already very advanced. The aim and the transformation, beautiful, Charlotte, and for you as well, Patrice. So when we're looking for this video, what I want you to look at is, okay, what can I learn from this specific example for my keynote specifically? What we're going to do is we're going to watch Linda's video. She submitted it yesterday and she already made an iteration. We're going to watch the iteration. And you're all going to look at, okay, what is the aim of this talk? Or what's the transformation of this talk? What can I learn from this? Again, it's this integration workshop is for you to fill in your form, and we're going to watch one video as an example. I'm going to share the video. We're going to watch it together. We're going to analyze it together. I'm going to pause it in between, just like we've done before. So you're all learning some extra nuances as well for the next level. Gonna get 2 thumbs up if that makes sense. If it's completely clear what the exercise is all about. All right, there we go. You ready? Amazing, Linda, to the stage. By the way, and this is important for everybody, it's really easy to now give feedback on the way it's been delivered. But also with your prep call, in this case, Linda is reading it. That's not a bad thing. Let her read it. Okay, so just focus on what she's sharing. There we go.
Suddenly you didn't. It rising above the storm of life. Have you ever felt you had life completely under control until suddenly you didn't? It was picture perfect summer afternoon on the Long Island Sound in New York. Vacation. The kids were laughing, the water was like glass, and everything was idyllic as we headed to our next destination. The sky started to turn to early nightfall. A knot of uneasy tightened in my stomach, but I told myself to stay calm. Taking a slow, deliberate breath, I even whispered a quick prayer. The wind picked up with alarming speed, and in moments our boat was listing dangerously to one side. My heart hammered against my ribs. Instinct took over. I grabbed the bungee cord, securing Ashley first, then Lisa, and finally Courtney, the oldest at just 6 years old. My youngest had to stay with me. I was pregnant 5 months. How can I save everyone if we capsize? Those words kept repeating in my head. It felt like an eternity as my husband wrestled with the wheel, batting the relentless wind. Is there anything else we can do? I yelled over the roar. And then as suddenly as it began, the sun pierced through the clouds and we were back on our journey. My hands were still trembling. I felt so helpless until I realized that I did have control. I couldn't stop the storm, but I could keep my kids safe. That storm on the water wasn't the first time I felt a sudden loss of control. Life has a way of teaching us lessons in unexpected ways, and one of my earliest came through my little brother, 5 years younger than me. He had a remarkable talent for finding trouble and an uncanny ability to require rescuing. Does anyone here have a sibling like that? The one who always kept you on high alert, wondering what they'd get into next. It was after school. I was doing my homework when all of a sudden I heard my brother running down the stairs of our second floor apartment in the Bronx. I glanced out the living room window and there he was, pedaling his bike straight up the hill. My heart sank. Taking 2 steps at a time, I ran down the stairs, yelling, "Get back here!" But he didn't. I stood frozen as I saw him flying back down the hill, way too fast. It was watching it in slow motion, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. He lost control and went flying over the handlebars, blood streaming down his face, gash in his forehead, rocks were embedded in his knees, and scratches covered his small body. "You weren't supposed to leave the house," I blurted out, a useless reprimand, fueled by fear and guilt. What else could I say? I was terrified, overwhelmed, and gasping for any words to mask the helplessness I felt at that moment. Tony, our neighbor, rushed us to the hospital. I sat in the waiting room trying to stay calm, but I was overwhelmed with worry for my brother and how much trouble I was going to get into when my parents arrived from work. Even then, at just 12 years old, I was learning what it meant to take responsibility for someone else, sometimes at the expense of my own peace of mind. Looking back, I can honestly say my brother, despite prematurely graying my hair, also inadvertently steered me towards my career in nursing. At 16, I didn't realize it at the time, but those moments planted the seeds for my future.
All right. Let's pause it there for a moment. See some applause here and there. Charlene, what did you notice? What first and foremost did Amazing Linda amazingly?
Excellent use of storytelling. Just pull you right in to the moment, and really beautifully written. You really should write, Linda, more. Like, you should write stories. She pulls you in, she gives you two stories right away that you're like, what exactly is she trying to tell me about her? What is the subject here that she's trying to convey? And then she just pulls it all together. How she really found who she is because of these stories and these experiences. It was just fascinating. But I really loved the two stories that you chose, the way you told them, and how you pulled them together in terms of how you found your calling and what you wanted to do. And now I'm really intrigued.
Cliffhanger. Who agrees with what Charlene is saying? Okay, Amazing Linda. Get that into yourself. That must feel good. Charlene, the stories you're sharing. She says she shares two stories. If I would pull up her Notion story library, then what could be the titles of those two stories?
Well, the second one would be brother speeding on his bicycle when I'm responsible for him.
Perfect. Perfect. What could also be a title for that story, Charlene?
I learned how responsible I felt for my brother when he hurt himself with his bicycle.
Yes.
On my watch.
Absolutely. The goal of the titles of your story library are for you to remember the story. So if we look at Linda's story library, now we'll probably know what she means with a title, but we don't need to. No one needs to know what you mean with your story library. The only reason that you have your story library is to download the stories out of your brain, put them onto a template, onto a folder, so it's actually saved, so you can use them. So well done. So the first, and what about the other story? About the boat sailing with 3 kids alive, 1 pregnant, or also alive, but not like on Earth in the belly.
Well, that story reminds her of the second story, which is kind of an interesting way that they're tied together. That you're brought to a more current story that reminds her of a previous story. So I don't know how she would put it in her library, but I think it would be something like,
Any help in the chat?
Boat, responsible for my children, the storm, the boat, the storm, my children.
Yes, very good. The reason why I let you practice with this is because you need to remember. That's it. Maybe family nightmare will do the trick for you, Patrice. Maybe above the storm in sailing boat would do it for you, Nilsa. Right? Everybody has their own way of making categories for this. And Caroline, I see you're putting it to me private. The seas and the boat and terror, right? It's just whatever you need to remember that story. That's it. So when we go on our one-on-one prep call and I say, what stories did you use? Linda can now say, well, Lori, in the first 4 minutes, I'm using 2. The first one is sailing with family. And the second one is brother and bike who falls. I'm like, okay, Linda, you're really getting how you created this. Do we all see that we need to understand how you create it to create a new one and to improve it because you really understand the structure of it? Does that make sense? Right? That's why we're doing all of this. So now you're seeing that Linda is using a story to open. It's a story where she's around 30 years old. Then next, she transitions to a second story. And that second story, how old were you there, Linda?
What, in the second story with my brother? I was 12.
12. So she was first 30, now she's 12. That's the wrong order. That's confusing. Or is it not? Is it possible that we can mix timelines? The only thing we need to do is tell people where they are in the timeline. What you're going to notice is that when people switch the times and they, what I call time travel to a certain place, that it's going to be more interesting to listen to because it's more unexpected. So we're more drawn in and we're more present here with you right now. Someone else. Nilsa, what did you notice?
I noticed a lot of pictures. Her storytelling, I saw pictures and pictures and pictures. I saw her on the boat. I saw her praying. I saw her with the kids. I saw her with her belly pregnant. I saw her talking to her husband. I saw her remarkable brother going up the hill, and I saw him rolling down the hill. And I know Linda personally, so I know she's calm, but I could feel inside of her she was scared. And I love the word that she used, useless reprimand. And that is fascinating because how many times are we in situations when we start uselessly reprimanding people, but it's because of our fear?
Yeah, beautiful.
I thought the dialogue was amazing. And I want to celebrate her because this is her second time around the academy, and it's 100% impressive what she's doing. And I
Well,
know she's an excellent YouTuber. She's getting some practice with YouTube as well.
beautiful. And I'm hearing also some very beautiful language from your side, which also shows that you're really getting what we're doing, right? What you're saying is, I see a lot of pictures. When we communicate, there's different ways we can do that. We can talk to generalizations. For example, Linda, you could have said, my brother, he fell off and I needed to go to the hospital. It would be absolutely correct, right? I would not change any content, but you're changing how you say this. And when we share generalizations, the brain picks it up and does save it, no worries. It's just that stories are processed 60,000 times faster and are connected to more networks within the brain, so people actually remember it longer. And it will probably also be attached to an emotion, which will help it even better. So you're sharing pictures. And what you say, Nilsa, is she was using a dialogue. There's a difference of Linda saying, and then I set him to, I don't know exactly, I don't remember exactly, but like, let's just say, I then said, stop crying. I then said to him that he should stop crying. Versus, and then I say to him, hey, stop crying. Right? Which one do you feel is more powerful for a talk? Number one. And then I said to him that he should stop crying. Or number two. And then I say to him, Hey, stop crying. Number 1 or number 2? Show with your fingers. Number 2, right? So it's beautiful to use what we call dialogues, where you're time traveling to the moment, right? So there's different times on the timeline. You're traveling to the moment and you are re-experiencing it like it's happening now. For example, and it was the same as when I was 12 and I needed to take care of my brother. That's past. And then you would say, we're both on top of a hill. He is on his bicycle. He is, right? So we're getting from the past to the present. And in the present, you're using dialogues. Does it make sense? Does it almost make sense? I see some processing brains, right? That's why we do this with examples, and that's why we do this not for 1 week, right? Because this is going to settle in. Any other thoughts on this specific part before we continue watching this video? Patrice, what did you notice?
Actually, I was gonna ask you a question. What you were saying, I was trying to visualize it in my head. You were saying, you just said you use the past tense to travel back to the past. But once you get in the past, you bring people in with the present tense. Is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. It's thank you. To respond to your question, yes, the visualization, I could literally like leave the story she was telling, right? It was very visual. And then from the first one to the second one was a good whip. Like she started and I'm like, okay, what happened? Like I start typing down hardship, but she threw me out when she went to the second one and then switched into her call in life, which is her becoming a nurse, right? So it kept me engaged at all time, because what I thought in the beginning, I thought she was gonna land like this, the book capsized, or I learned from this story that, and then she switches back to her little brother. So I'm like, okay, what does the story with your little brother have to do with the boat capsizing? Maybe two catastrophic events, maybe. And then she's like, I see the caring, and then I become like, oh, that was good. So she switched my brain 3 times, which kept me engaged.
Well said. Well said. Beautiful. So there's different ways to engage people, right? You can say, raise your hand if, or who of you. But there's also more like less visual kind of ways, right? This is more a kinesthetic auditorian kind of way, right? So there's different energies and different ways of doing this that draws people in. And that's how you can find your own style too, and that we don't need to be exactly the same as one another. Beautiful observation. Let's keep watching. And while you're watching, think through the lens of, how can this now work for me?
I certainly spent enough time in hospitals because of him. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days, more whiny than usual, if you know what I mean. Excessive thirst, constant trips, just generally off. Then something unusual happened. He went quiet. That's when alarm bells went off and we rushed him to the emergency room. He was admitted to pediatrics, and I remember in my youthful naivety thinking it looked like a fun place to work. What could be so bad about being around kids all day? Even though I spent most of the time waiting anxiously, it seemed exciting. In my teenage brain, it even felt like a prime location for potential boy encounters. But really, what really stuck with me wasn't the excitement. It was the calm, impatient demeanor of the doctors and nurses. They didn't talk down to us or make us feel stupid. They explained everything in a way we could actually understand, even though it was such a scary and overwhelming moment. When they told us my brother had juvenile diabetes, it felt like the ground shifted under us. Everything was going to change, and I didn't know how we'd handle it. But watching the way the doctors and nurses stayed steady and supportive made me realize something important. Sometimes the only way to get through hard things is to accept them, even when it's the last thing you want to do. Looking back now, I realize that day taught me one of my first lessons in acceptance. At the time, I didn't fully understand, but I learned that it's okay to feel scared or overwhelmed. What mattered was finding a way to stay steady, just like the doctors and nurses did for us. That lesson stuck with me, even though I couldn't have imagined how important it would be later in life. There are still days I jokingly debate whether to thank my brother or, well, let's just say express my deep appreciation for the unexpected detours he sent my way. As expected, I went to college to become a nurse. I thought I was finally stepping out on my own, ready to take on the world. It was the summer of the bicentennial. I was going to be a junior. The country was alive with celebrations, fireworks lit up the sky, and I felt them in my heart too, as I met my future husband. He was 4 years older, loved his toys, boats, cars, motorcycles, and he wanted me. At that time in my life, I was still figuring out who I was, and everything seemed to be moving so fast. But then life shifted, like a sudden change in the wind that threw my sails off course. My dad lost his job, and I had to come back home right after the fall semester. I was already engaged after just a few months, and the sudden engagement, along with leaving school, sparked plenty of gossip. Is she pregnant? Is that what it's all happening so quickly? I hated those rumors. My stubborn side kicked in, and I became determined to prove them wrong, to show that I was more than the assumptions people made about me. Fall of 1977, I had to change nursing school and ended up at Columbia University in New York. Marriage came the next spring, and I was going to.
All right, let's pause it right there. What did we notice? What did we notice right here? Nilsa.
Here. Okay, again, high level storytelling. Her story gets even more intriguing. We get in even more into the story because there's more details about her taking her brother to the emergency room. And then she's with her brother in the emergency room, but she's creating another story in her head. Oh, I can do this. I like this. I could be around kids. I could even meet boys here, which I thought that was adorable. And then
Pause there for a moment. Who certainly remembers that moment too? Because while you're watching the video, I'm looking at your faces too. And that's where everybody had to laugh. Now, and we talked about this yesterday, right? Like you said this now, Patrice, like we want to make sure that we engage people. And as a speaker, you're a leader from stage. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that people are with you the entire time. And when they go into their own dreamland, because now they're talking nurses and it's like, oh, like I could think of like, oh, my brother, he hockeys always. He was just at the doctor because he had a ball on his knee and now I'm like going on my own Discovery Channel, right? Who remembers that? When someone tells a story and you're halfly in and at some point they're finished, you're like, oh my God, I had my own experience over here. I had no idea what you're talking about. Which is nice, but not when you're speaking. Because Linda has 3 points that she's delivering here, and I'm very curious at the end, what do you think the 3 are? And when she goes into really amazing storytelling, but she's not bringing you back to where she's talking, she's losing you. Now, how can you engage people? There's a lot of different ways. But when people are laughing, you know they're listening now. You got them back here. So this moment is really important, Linda, in your timeline, because you know this is where you certainly will get them back. And at some point, when you analyze and you become more ingrained with the whole through line, and you spend 80% of your time in lens number 4, which is optimize the delivery, and you're understanding what the different lenses there are and different ways to communicate, you're starting to understand that the engagements are every single couple of seconds. So instead of like doing once every minute, which in the beginning is awesome, right? Because you have like, let's just say 15 minutes, 10 minutes. So the engagement that we watched yesterday, Linda, was beginning and end, remember? So now you already know, okay, wait, I got one in the middle now too. So now you're already, bum, the longest way for people to concentrate now is 7 minutes. And at some point is like 30 seconds, because you know that you're the leader and you're always bringing them from one place to another. So that was really, really, really nicely observed, Nilsa, and fun to recognize as a group is that everybody was there and everybody remembers, and everybody will probably remember that because it was attached to an emotion. And who, when they were laughing, had some sort of picture or emotion connected to that, right? Something, yeah, you just like, we're creating your whole own internal reality, right? That's what we want.
And then, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nilsa, yeah, let's finish.
Yeah, and then I already got 3 nuggets from where she's at right now. Hard things, accept them. It's okay to feel scared and overwhelmed. And then figuring out who I am or who I was. That's what so far those are my notes from what I've gotten from what she said.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We're going to see at the end what the total summary would be from all of you. And sometimes as a speaker, you have a clear 1, 2, 3. So for example, with transformational speaking, what I often say is you need to stand up for who you are. You need to speak up your truth, your message, and then you need to scale up your impact and your income. So the first one is around confidence of speaking. The second one is the messaging of speaking. And then the third one is getting on stages and get paid for it, right? So that's kind of like 3 steps that I bring people towards. You're all in step 2. You're in speak up. You're creating your message. So we're going to figure out what the 3 steps are of Linda. That doesn't mean that that is the only thing you're learning. It means more that that is kind of like the, let's just say the foundational pillars that you connected to. Makes sense? Beautiful. Charlene.
Thank you for reviewing that. I just had one comment that got my attention, is that when she went into the story, the third story about her brother, she said, can I tell another story? She asked the audience, which goes back to what you were saying about you have their attention and then they're drifting off into their own scenarios perhaps. But then the speaker says, hey, can I tell you this story? And then, the listener would be like, oh yeah, of course. Right. Or what's that? So I thought that was a really brilliant tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
To keep that engagement going and without asking a specific question.
Yeah. Beautiful. And Linda, would you be open to do that specific sentence probably like 10 times out loud right now together? And then every single time I'm going to ask you to do it in a different way. Would you be open to that? All right. So the first one, and everybody, this is for everybody. Let's see the difference. Linda, let's do it in the way you just did it. Just do it out loud now.
Which one? The one where I say, can I share the story?
Yes. And maybe
Okay.
in front of you, maybe do the sentence before and the sentence after too.
Okay. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story?
And then 1 second after a sentence.
The same sentence?
The sentence after, can I share the story with you?
The sentence after, can I share the story? Or can I share? Okay. He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
Perfect. All right.
Okay.
Perfect. So that is number one. Everybody pay close attention to what you're going to experience because this is super crucial for every single one of you. What we're going to do now, Linda, we're going to do the exact same thing. But before, or like right after the first sentence, before the question, you're going to count in your head 1 second before you're going to ask. And then right after the question, you're going to count again to 1 before the third sentence. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, let's do it.
One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
Beautiful. So what was the difference for everybody? Which one was more powerful? Let me ask it like this. Was it number 1 or number 2? Number 1 or number 2? Everybody. And good to see you, Mari. You'll follow along. Number 2. All right. Let's do another one. Now, Linda, instead of 1 second, I want you to do 2 seconds.
Okay. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share this story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
Which one was more powerful? Number 2 or number 3? We've got 4. We've got some doubters. There's a couple of 3s. What do you got? Okay, we've got number 2 and number 3. So
Me too.
1 and 2 seconds. So let's go back to 1 second. So version 2, but we're going to change something else for version 4. Okay? So now, can you say the middle of the sentence again? Like the question?
Can I share the story?
Yeah. So now we're going to create some tone, right? You can do, can I share this story?
Okay.
Say it like, can I share this story? So you go up, can I share this story? Can you try that? Just the sentence alone for a practice round?
Can I share the story? I don't.
You did well. So now that version with 1 second of pause. Let's go.
Okay. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
Which one was more powerful, number 2 or number 4? Linda, look at the screen. Show it.
Yeah.
Everybody. So what did you feel when you were doing that, Linda? Because I was noticing something from your reaction, but I don't want to make assumptions. What do you feel?
I felt almost like an excitement that
Okay.
I was telling the next story, that I was reconnecting with everybody at that point.
Okay. What I was assuming, maybe I was not right, was a little uncomfort as well. Like,
That too.
okay, felt a little weird.
Most definitely.
So for you, it
Like
might
unknown.
be more extreme. Well, for everybody in the room, it was the better version, right? So
Right.
sometimes what we are listening and what we're hearing and what we're going through is not what the audience goes through. And that's why we're doing this. So now we have 1 second of pause. We have a little higher up. Now, can you share the first sentence one more time?
One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly.
All right. So now let's finish that sentence a little low. So can you say it one more time? Sorry. One
Particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly.
particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. So now we're going down. Stands out vividly. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story with you? Let's try it. So first sentence, you go down a bit, 1 second. Second sentence, you go up a
Okay.
bit, 1 second. Third, we do normal. Let's go.
Okay. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been under the weather for a couple of days. I noticed I didn't stop for that 1 second between the first sentence and the second sentence. I was quickly thinking about how I was going to elevate my tone, which I don't do well.
I get it. So that's why we want a repetition. Do we all see this? Do we all see that we're sharing from a place that's comfortable to us, but there's a more powerful version on the other side, one that's not practiced as many times as the one that's comfortable. So can we say that it's already super awesome that Linda's doing this out loud, because this is like a little uncomfortable to do it in front of everybody, but you gave permission. I asked first. So let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Can I say something before she does that?
Of course.
Linda, maybe think about, when you're talking to the group. But when you ask, can I share this story with you? It's more like you're talking directly to someone.
Right.
Because that's how I feel in an audience when someone says, can I share this
Right.
story with you? All of a sudden, I'm like, I am being asked for permission. Whereas before that, you're telling it to the group. So maybe just shift to speaking to directly to one person when you say that, and maybe it'll feel more like natural.
Let's see if I can elevate my voice with that thought in mind.
Just think about talking to one
try.
person. Like, can I tell you the story?
Let's give her space. Linda, breathe in. Let's do it.
One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
Which one was best? The version we just had as 4 or this current one? Let's call this one 5. 4 or 5? We've got mix and mingles.
She changed the language.
So-
The script said with you,
Okay.
that I recall.
Okay, we got it. So 4 was still better than 5. So let's do this one more time. And now think about the 1 second again. The 1 second of pause. So breathe in. Let's do it all together.
One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
All right, version 4 or version 6? Show it with your fingers. We're almost anonymous. That was version 4.
I just lost track. I can't remember 4 now.
That's okay. That's okay. It was the previous version that was the best one voted. And in a bit, we're going to watch further because we're not going to do 100 times. But I hope you all see that the small nuances on 1 or 2 sentences can really, really make the whole thing change completely. So let's just say that you're going to do this intentional for every single sentence at some point, right? You can completely drive emotion by just that switch. This is, by the way, when we look at your blueprint, this is lens number 4. All right, so this is not for everybody for now, but I also want you to see what the difference is. So your brain starts to imagine what this can be for you. All right. So Linda, just for the sake of doing it, let's do it 3 times in a row without breaks. We're not going to vote. You're going to do it 3 times after each other. The only thing you want to consciously pay attention to is the pause. 1 second. Count 1 second in your brain. Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather. One particular visit when he was 11 stands out vividly. Can I share the story? He'd been a bit under the weather for a couple of days.
There you go. We want to get the reps in, right? The more you start to get this into your body, the more mental space you have to focus on the way you say things. We don't want to focus on the way you say things when you're still figuring out what the content will be, right? That's why it's in this specific order. We first want the aim, then we want the stories, then we want to glue it together. And then we want to optimize the experience. And that is always, there's always a next level there. Make sense? All right. So let's keep watching. Mari, we're watching Linda's video, but Patrice?
Yes, question. So as she's going through all of this, I'm trying to analyze, when you're telling a story, let's, you're going through I won't say sad, but a low emotion. Are you supposed to use a lower tone to get people inside a zone? And then you take them out as you elevate your pitch to wake them up, and then they can refocus. Is that the aim? Because that's kind of what I'm experiencing. She's like, he's being under the weather. Can I tell you the story? I'm like, yeah. And he's been, right? And she's like, he's under the weather for sometimes.
Is that what you're saying? It wakes you up the way she.
Yes.
Okay. So
That's what I'm asking.
what we're all striving for with speaking is to
Mhm.
create contrast.
Okay.
So what I self-diagnosed myself on some point was enthusiastically monotone. It's like if you're always enthusiastic and always high in voice and always ramping up, then it's not new anymore. It's always the same. So what I consciously need to do, and this has something to do with my personal speaking style, is very visual, very fast, is how my brain works. I need to consciously drop to a lower pace, a deeper voice, slower, to also let people.
Okay.
So we want to bring that contrast, because when I'm slowing down, but then I'm speeding up, and then I'm using my voice in a powerful way, then you will feel it way more than I would do this constantly every single time. And I'm always on this pace, and you're like, okay, Lori, that's a lot, but it's all a lot. It's all the same. So there's no contrast created. And contrast we can create by the type of story. We can create contrast by the tone of voice. We can create contrast by the pace. We can create contrast by body language. Mari used contrast with the way she used the lighting, right? So there's a lot of different ways to create contrast. And the more further advanced you get, on the more different levels you're going to create contrast. Because the more lenses, the more nuances you can pay attention to, the more quote unquote magical it gets. But it's very easy to analyze if you know what to look for. Does that make sense? Does it answer your question?
Yes, very well. So in a nutshell, now when to create contrast. And then in my head, as you're talking, I'm thinking, if you're telling something that's going to be a little bit somber, then you need a lower voice to kind of, like when you're listening to, I don't know, a Dateline or this kind of crime story, when they're going to tell you like somebody's about to do something like really somber, the voice get deep and slow. And then they say, and then she jump out of the window and she start running, right?
Yes.
It wakes you up. So if there's the energy, you use the energy tone. If the story is kind of like mellow or somber, then you're going to like, as if it was a lullaby, you're trying to sing to somebody just to get them into the zone. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And again, and this is just to give all of you grace, this is something that starts to be normal to pay attention to when the fundamentals are already built. Because you have 100% of concentration, 100% of headspace, 100% bandwidth. And if you need, let's just say, 50% for the aim, 40% for the stories. There's only 10% to glue it all together. There's no focus on optimizing. You're already happy that you did something, right? And that's perfect, right? And the more logical the aim becomes and the more organic it becomes to the stories. Like Niels is doing this now for the 5th round, or not the 4th round, or 5th round, Niels. I lost count. 4th round. The 4th round. So now we just had a prep call, right? Or prep call. And she said, Lori, I had this story from last week and I use it. And like Nilsa, congratulations. You're able to recognize stories now while you're doing this, right? So that's a next skill that we can lean into once the other parts are more obvious and logic. So when you have your story library, when you know how to pick it, and then all these other things become more open. So also give yourself grace if not everything happens at once, because sometimes it just takes some time. But that's exactly how it works. All right, ready for the last bit? There we go.
Start my senior year in the fall. Life moved quickly, and I found myself stepping into the role of a caregiver for someone else, which was expected in those days. Nursing, though, gave me something unique. It allowed me to balance caregiving with building a career and finding a sense of independence. It became the foundation for the life I was creating, even as I navigated the challenges of being a young wife and caregiver. The great thing about nursing is that it provides opportunities to balance family and career. While the kids were young, I worked all kinds of shifts in different departments and facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, you name it. It wasn't until they were older that my career really advanced. And I found myself running a medical facility in New York once all the kids were in school. And by the way, the last one was a boy. I took the role of managing an ambulatory healthcare facility. Life was busy, challenging, and rewarding all at the same time. As a businesswoman and mother, I was used to navigating life's challenges, steering through rough waters with determination and grit. But even the strongest captains face storms they can't control. The hardest and most painful truth I had to face was that I wasn't in a marriage. I was in a one-sided relationship. Carrying the weight alone at times, it felt like I was a single parent, juggling everything on my own while trying to hold it all together. For too long, I had ignored my own needs. I had to accept that the marriage was over and take action, not just to rebuild my life for myself, but also for my kids. I still remember in church holding my father's arm, waiting for the processional music to begin. I had the sudden, overwhelming urge to run. Sometimes I wonder if I should have. But then I think about my beautiful children and grandchildren, and I know I wouldn't trade them for anything. They are my greatest blessings, and I can't imagine my life without them. Just when I thought I had it all under control, managing my career, raising my kids, and navigating life's challenges as they came, life threw me into the perfect storm. I found myself sitting on the floor, just crying. I was completely drained, physically, emotionally, and mentally. I felt like I was failing everyone, my kids, my father, my mother, and my brother, who were both fighting their own battles with cancer. That moment was my breaking point. You know, how sometimes life throws everything at you all at once? That's exactly what that was. My mom, who had always been the strong heart of our family, got life-changingly sick. At the same time, my brother was battling his own serious health fight. And on top of all that, I was trying to be there for my kids and keep my career afloat. Each one of those challenges would have been hard enough on its own, but together, they created a storm so relentless that I completely lost sight of myself. In the middle of all that, guess who I put last? Yep, me. I got so focused on taking care of mom, worrying about my brother, and trying to keep things stable for my kids that I ignored every warning sign. from my own body and mind. I thought if I could just keep going, somehow things would get better. But the harder I pushed, the more lost I became. I forgot what I was even doing it at all, who I was outside of being a caregiver, and my health started slipping away. That moment on the floor, completely alone with my exhaustion, felt like the weight of the world was pressing down on me. And for the first time, the truth hit me. I was utterly lost. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. But even in that deep despair, something shifted. It was like a tiny spark of awareness flickered on, a moment of brutal clarity. I realized if I didn't take control, if I kept going like this, I was going to lose myself completely. I couldn't keep pouring everything out and leaving nothing for myself. I had to find a way to prioritize myself, to protect what little energy I had left, and to somehow, some way rediscover my purpose in all the chaos. That moment, as awful as it was, became the unexpected starting point for finding my way back. Awareness, acceptance, and action have guided me through life storms, helping me find clarity and strength to move forward. But when I forgot to prioritize myself, even the 3 A's couldn't hold me up. That's the lesson I hope you take away from this today. 3 A's are powerful, but they need a strong foundation, and that foundation is you. So let me ask you, what's one thing you can do to prioritize yourself today? Is there a need you've been ignoring, a truth you've been resisting, or maybe one small action you can take to care for yourself? Life will always have its storms, but when you prioritize yourself, you give yourself the strength to adjust your sails, weather the winds, and chart a course toward thriving. Start today because you deserve it.
Amazing. All right. What did we notice? Carolyn.
Excuse me. I loved how she brought, again, auditory, the same word she brought it back about the sailing.
Yeah.
Winds, sails, storm, relentless storm, charting your course. I love that, the auditory, bringing it back together.
Isn't it fascinating, right? When Nilsa heard a lot of talks for the first time, Nilsa is a finance expert, right? She was like, I don't hear any numbers. And that was the feedback she said every single time. And it got very clear that Nilsa's brain loves numbers. This is the third time, Carolyn, that you're sharing about the sound. So now we all know the Carolyns in our audience are focused on that. Do we see that the way we share, the way we ask questions reveal a lot on the way we receive information? What I'm also hearing, and this is more on the structured side, right, Carolyn, is she's beginning with a sailing mode and she's ending with a sailing mode. The best ends are the ones where you feel satisfied, or at least like know it's the end, right? The worst ends are this was it. Oh, okay. Right? It's really nice when it's obvious to the audience. What you're going to notice as well, it's really nice for the host because he or she knows, oh, this is the end. This is where I'm coming back in. Mari, what did you notice? I figured you would say something because there's something that's very personal to you based on this one.
Yes, it's the sailing. It was like, oh my gosh, this woman started, the bookends, the beginning of the sail and the end. It was just so, it grabbed me. And I could really relate to you in the sense that people around your family are going through their own storms, if it's cancer, if it's this or is it that. And what do we do to protect ourselves. I mean, it was so relatable. I'm in the middle of this tornado, if you want to call it that way. And thank you for sharing. I would like to say to you, if you can, try not to read it so much, you know? And
Yeah.
wait, I want to ask, is this only positive things? I don't want to say the other.
Nice. We train this behavior. I love it. Nice one, Mari. Good to catch
Yeah.
yourself, because the way we
I
give
caught
feedback
myself.
is probably how we talk to ourselves, right? So we want to chunk it down. So it's good to give feedback. It's also good to know what to give feedback on now, because right now she did not focus on performance. So it's really nice to give feedback on the content, and then next
Okay,
she's actually going to perform, and then we want to hear your feedback on the reading and stuff.
thank you. The content was very powerful. The content was very powerful, was very engaging and relatable.
Beautiful.
Okay, now relatable, I don't know. It depends on the target audience, honestly, depend on the ages. There are people that at a specific age cannot relate to what you're saying because they're in another zone in their life, but I can speak for myself. And thank you so much for giving an open heart to us.
Thank you, Marty. Can I add something to that? So Marty, just to give you a little of insight, I work with caregivers, predominantly in the sandwich generation. So feel free to reach out. And that's what I do. I coach them, I help them navigate the challenges, the storms. I do healthcare advocacy. So that's my perspective from trying to find those people who are caregivers. And usually probably my story is between people between 30, 35 and older. Because a lot of those are young parents sometimes who are having aging parents, and they're in that storm at that point. So
So
thank you for your
Where did
feedback.
Where
beautiful.
did
And
the
let's
sailing
focus.
come from? Sorry.
Yeah, so let's focus on that for a moment. Let's focus on the sailing, because who here somehow emotionally connects with just sailing? Not just the story of Linda, but something around sailing. Not everybody, but at least half of the group. Now, Mari, and I've heard Mari's story before. Mari created a documentary based on a person that was sailing. So when Mari hears something around sailing, like her heart goes like sparkles open, right? And this is the power of storytelling, right? Mari, if you need someone who's going to help you with caregiving, who would you pick? Would you pick someone who also has something around sailing, or another random person who has the same credentials? Right? It's the emotional connection that makes the difference. And these emotional connections are established through stories and the pictures people create in their own mind's eye based on the story. Because what Linda did not say is, hey, Mari, I also created a documentary. I went to Italy. She did not say any of that. And that's what your sailing story is all about. So your question, like, where did the sailing come about? Is like, girl, tell me everything. I want to know everything because this is what I'm passionate about too, right? And for Linda, it was a personal life experience. Now, remember, there's 3 different buckets that we can pick stories from. The credibility. We have community.
Community.
We have coolness. Which of these 3 C's did Linda use in the first sailing story? In the first sailing story, which of the 3 C's did she use? I see the chat. Charlene says community. Yes, because she's talking about her family. She's there with her husband, with her 3 children. She's pregnant. So yes, absolutely community. Who agrees with community? Everybody. Okay. Now Nilsa, she's a little wild over here. She says it's also coolness. Who agrees that it would be part of coolness as well? And what we mean with coolness, okay, everybody. Coolness is not, oh my God, Linda is so cool on a sailing boat and she has rapper glasses and she's so cool, right? What we mean with coolness is this is very unique. This is specific for Linda. This is different than other people. For example, what makes Luke in this call different is just that he's from the UK. Right? Who's here from the US? Almost everybody, besides me and Luke, right? So what Luke is different from everybody in this call is he's from the UK. That's already cool about Luke right now because it's different. Does it make sense? So it's not that Luke needs to wear cool glasses or that he needs to have fireworks behind him, right? It can already be, that's one thing different. Now for Linda, it was this time she is sailing. It's very different than caregiving. So Patrice, when we're talking contrast, do we see that it's also the 3 C's that create contrast? When Linda would share something about her experience as a nurse, going to the hospital, and then doing this, it's like all at the same level of stories. It's all the same thing. Now she's sailing. It's like very different. Do you see Linda, nurse, and then sailing? It's a very different emotion she's creating by just telling that story. So now let's look at the other one. Nilsa, you also picked credibility. Who here believes that this story relates to credibility as well? Everybody except Patrice. Nilsa, what's your argument? Tell us, why is this credible?
Well, my argument is in her setting, she's sailing on a boat and she sees that there's a storm coming, and she immediately knew how to pull the rope and protect her kids and scream at her husband, what do I do next? And she took action. So she obviously knew how to, she not only loves sailing, she also knows how to sail a boat and how to protect herself from a storm. And that's credibility in that scene.
Okay, so
Because if it was me, I wouldn't know what to do, but she knew what to do.
so for you, knowing that she's credible to sail, that makes you feel trust her more as a caregiver expert. Now, I would love to hear from Patrice, because Patrice, you were like, or maybe I'm filling it in, maybe you just, like, I'm curious what your thoughts on that, because you didn't raise your hand. What do you potentially say, like, no, that's not credibility at all? Like,
I see her argument when she start explaining. I see what angle she's looking at it. I was looking at it, there was a storm happening and she was asking her husband how to manage it. So if she was in charge of this managing the storm, then it gives me a credibility. Okay, she's been in the storm and she knew what to do. So if another one happened, hey, we can ask Linda. But she was asking somebody else to, like, hey, what do I do? Now, if she tells me the story that I have been to the storm and I learned a thing or two by following someone, so now I know how to be in the storm, yeah, I can use that as credibility. But in her story, she was not directing the event, so she was following, right? She was learning.
beautiful. So there's different perspective, and I see Nilsa is putting in the chat. She took charge first, and then she asked how to help. But the beauty is the way we're explaining this shows me that you're both understanding why we use credibility and how it's created. Because credibility in this case for Linda, now we know that she's helping caregivers, doesn't mean that she knows really well how to how to give care, right? But it also means that we trust her expertise as a human because she's showing as credible in other areas of her life. For example, let's just say, and I'm just making this up, that you're a ghostwriter, which means that you're writing people's books. You're interviewing people and you're writing people's books. But you've been a, let's say, ice skating Olympic champion before. Is that credibility when that person wants to sell his ghostwriting services? Yes or no? Not yes or no. Make it clear. I see some people hesitant. Some people are like, yes, Laura, you get the point. The truth is yes. The truth is yes. And I'll explain why. The emotions that are connected to someone who's excelling in one area of life can be leveraged to another area of life. Now, of course, it's not enough, right? We also want to hear you got people to best-selling books and something like this. But what I want to make sure of is that we are all understanding that for Linda, when she's actually, and I love this little discussion because I agree with Patrice, right? The credibility counts when you're credible in the situation. Right? Not when I'm like, I watched ice skating. She's like, yeah, she's credible because she watched Olympic athletes. No, it's not how it works, right? So it needs to be clear that you were in charge of that situation. Now, if or when or whatever, right, Lena, you're able to take this back to the drawing board in your specific case to make sure that when you want to drive home credibility in that point, we need to make sure now that Patrice is also on board if it really counts. So then it needs to be clearer up front so everybody is anonymous. Do we start to see how this really works? Right? You have something in your head, you want to test it, you want to see how it's landing, and iterate based on how you wanted it to get across. And at the same time, everybody has their creative way of listening to it, because I saw in the chat, Mari, you were, please repeat the 3 A's before. Who here remembers what the 3 A's are without Linda raising her hand? Charlotte, tell us. What were they? Oh, before you tell me, you're gonna tell us, but with a raise of hands, who remembers them? Nilsa had 2, Carolyn is doubting, Mari and Patrice are a little like,
Can I say, can I say?
So before you say this, Sharon, and this is really important for you, Linda, we want everybody to raise their hand automatically. So we want to make them more obvious. Okay, so Charlene.
Well, it's awareness, acceptance, and action.
Let's go.
And the reason that I remember them is for the comment that I wanted to make to Linda about this, and these are the notes that I did make. She talks about the sea being like glass, right? You're going along in life. Everything's kind of just routine. The storm equals the awareness. And each time she told a story, it was a collision, literally and figuratively, a collision of things coming together that brought awareness, that put her, that there was an imbalance. And then the acceptance was immediately navigating, okay, something needs to be done. And then the action was what to do. So each story had those 3 parts. Each part of that story went back to her teaching points. That's why I remembered them without looking at my notes, because when she said at the end, awareness, acceptance, and action, I was like, yeah, the storm, where are my kids? How do I get them secure? Now, is there anything more we can do?
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
So but this goes also to the story of her brother at the hospital and noticing the calm of those professionals and how she's cultivating this in her own life.
Yeah. Beautiful. And it's fascinating, and Linda, this is really important, is that one person, it's like, okay, let me tell you, I completely can draw it out for you. I totally remembered. And almost everybody was not completely aware, even though I asked, I want to know the 3 A's at the end. I want to know the 3 steps. So we want to make them more obvious. Why? There's 3 learning styles, remember? The visuals among us would be like, okay, this was great, I got so inspired, right? But the other would be like, okay, what did I learn? What are the points that we're here to make, and what can I actually implement? Now, the last thing that I want to say about this, and this is for everybody, there is a difference between talking about your story and sharing information versus driving home a transformation and leveraging your own stories to create it. Now, if I would say that there's like a scale of one of like using your own stories and also sharing some wisdom, like on one side, and completely creating a transformative transformation by using your own stories as a vehicle. First and foremost, do we understand the difference? Do we get there's a difference between sharing stories and creating a transformation with your stories? Then I would say, Linda, there's more room to move a little bit towards the transformation. And a specific way that you can all kind of track on that is, where am I not just engaged in the story and I feel the story, but where am I also going through my own thoughts of transformation? And how you do this really well, Linda, is you're using that in the beginning because you're asking a question. Then in some point, and that's what we practice 10 times, is it okay if I share a story? So there's some sort of interaction, but it's still about permission about your story. And then at the end, that's where you're interacting with, okay, how is this going to work for you? And a fun thing for you, and this is going to be the next step, is what in the middle of your talk can you do to already connect it to the other person? So it's not like I'm going to talk for 15 minutes and then you're going to integrate something. It's like we're going to walk on this path together, right? And also that we want to do every single moment, but that's again, new awareness. For now, I would say, let's make sure that in the middle, they integrate something for themselves. So we're not listening to understand why you made certain career decisions, because that's inspiring, but that's not transformative for the other person. Does that make sense? So you can think of what's one question that you can put in the middle that brings people in at that time. Can I get 2 thumbs up if that makes sense for everybody? There's a very much of a difference between listening and interacting. There's a difference between interacting and being engaged and being transformed. And that's where you want to go to. And that's the logical next step to take. Now I'm looking at the clock and I see there's 3 minutes left. So if there's specific questions, I'm going to stay a little longer to answer them. But right now I want to wrap it up for everybody who is strict on time. Now, all of you, you have your own blueprint. What I would love for you to do is draw down the ideas that you got by listening and watching to this, by making sure that when it's your turn that you have your story, your best version of what you can come up with right now, and that when you have your prep call, you also are able to create such an amazing video. Because can we agree that Linda did a phenomenal job, right? There's always a next level, but she did phenomenal, and she shared some very personal stories, right? There were stories about all different levels of C's. She said to me, Lori, you have no idea how much time I took to create this, and script and rescript and rescript. So the more you lean into this journey, the more you're going to get out of this. And Linda, kudos to you. Well done. So for all of you, draw it down in your blueprint and make sure that you're tracking for yourself. Now, in 2 weeks, the amazing speakers, Nilsa, Linda, and Jackie, who's not here now, will perform on the live stage their talk. All right? Which means that you are able to invite people to that live show. All of you will receive a special link to do that. So if it's not your turn, but you already kind of want to invite people to see like, oh, this is what I'm going to do in 4 weeks from now, you're able to do that. But you're also able to see how that's going to look like, right? So Linda, Nilsa, and Jackie, you're able to get your bio, the title of your talk, your photo into the blueprint as well. So we've got all the information that we need to make sure you will be featured, because that's what you will be. You will all be featured. So that on the practical elements, and then to close off with, what I would love to invite all of you to do is what we do every single week, is to create a video and to share that in our Academy WhatsApp group, right? That's the WhatsApp group. It's not the same as the Monday. It's only for the Academy with everybody who's currently in the Academy. And share the answer to the 3 questions that we always do. Number 1, who remembers? Nilsa, you remember? The mute button, the mute button, the mute button. Where is the button?
Ilsa, I'm gonna say it if you don't hit that unmute
Oh,
button.
you're talking to me, the breakthrough?
Yeah, to
I'm
you,
sorry.
Nilsa.
Okay, the breakthrough. What are we gonna do from now to the next meeting? And who are we grateful for?
Absolutely. So question number 1, what did you learn? Because when you speak that out into a camera, you're anchoring that lesson in. You learned a ton of things. But when you don't write them down, when you don't speak them out, they might fly out. So we want to capture them. So number 1, what did you learn? What was your aha moment? What was your breakthrough? What was your lesson today? Number 2, what are you gonna do before we see each other next? You're all invited to come Monday. We will see each other next Tuesday, right? So before we're gonna see each other next, what are you gonna implement? What are you gonna do? This is not, let's wait for my story to come. This is, let's integrate the lessons you got. And then number 3, who in this group are you grateful for today and why? Everybody here is stepping up. Everybody here is engaging, interacting. Everybody here is on camera, right? Everybody here showed up. Who are you grateful for and why? Isn't it really nice to hear that once in a while? So with that said, go take action. We see each other next Tuesday. You're loved and your story is absolutely worth sharing. And there's a lot of people who will be transformed, not just in this group, because I think Linda did some amazing stuff today, but also outside when you're able to share on the big stages. All right, you guys. See you all soon. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks.